Lois, episode 8, Holding the Wrench. Woo! So we're continuing from the John Henry Irons reveal from last week's episode, which was totally cool. And it starts with they ended up capturing, like, after, like, he's in DED custody, Department of Defense, whatever. He's in their custody, and they have his RV at the Kent farm because Superman flew it over there. So now what's happening is, like, the whole Kent family, they're trying to decide what to do because they're just like, oh, this guy's trying to kill your dad, so we're just gonna try to lay low for a while. They take the boys out of, like, football, so Jordan doesn't get, like, his emotions, like, out of whack. Johnathan has to quit football too, but also because he broke his wrist, which is unfortunate for him. And he's kind of struggling with that a little bit because he's in a situation now where he's like, my brother has superpowers, like, my dad has superpowers, and I'm just the normal guy that nobody cares about. So now Superman goes to interrogate Mr. Irons, and then he asked him the question, like, how did you get here? Because he said that the John Henry Irons of our Earth died due to mysterious circumstances. So they're just like, like, how'd you get here? And then they take us to a scene where John Henry Irons is in, like, this flying craft, and he's attacking the black suit Superman from his Earth. While the two of them are in battle and going at it, all of a sudden this big red wave shows up, and then it just cuts back to John in the cell talking to Superman. So clearly that was the moment where I guess his Earth got destroyed and the antimatter wave for Crisis took over, and somehow he ended up, on Earth Prime after Oliver Queen rebooted the universe. They still never mentioned what happened to his daughter, but I'll more on that later. So the two of them have a conversation, and then he's just like, he's like, like, you're the threat, Kal-El. And then he's just like, I'm not going to say another word until you bring me Lois Lane. And then he's just like, why do you want to talk to Lois Lane? And then he was just like, well, he was like, Lois doesn't want to talk to you. He was like, well, when you bring her ass here, she could tell me that to my face, so now, like, they're arguing, they're going back and forth. The general, he decides to go in there. Actually, John did tell him, he said that he did let them know that Lois was his wife on his Earth. And the general came in to talk to him because the general figured, well, if I'm his father-in-law on a different Earth, maybe I can confide in him. So he ends up talking to him, and then, he was just like he didn't get anything out of him, but then John was just like, you want to know how you died, General? He said, you died like a hero at the hands of Superman. He's like, he killed you, he's going to kill us all, because he's still trying to convince everybody. But he's like, if you want to know any information about anything I have to say, I'm not going to say another word until you bring me Lois Lane. Lois, like, she's going to investigate the RV. Johnathan ends up going with her because, again, like I said before, Johnathan was feeling a little left out. So he's like, well, at the very least, maybe I can help my mom. So both him and Lois go into the RV together. The AI pops up, she's just like, identification, please. And then she's like, Lois Lane. And then she's like, Lois Lane identity, like, accepted. And then they're kind of confused. They're just like, well, how the hell, does the AI, like, recognize Lois? But then, she was just, but the AI was like, what would you like to know, Lois? And then she was just like, tell me about John Henry Irons. So they pull up it. So the computer pulls up information on John Henry Irons. And then after she pulls up all the information, both Lois and Johnathan, they end up going through all the photos, going through all the footage, and they end up seeing the photos of John and Lois together on that Earth, as a married couple. That shows pictures of them at their wedding, pictures of them kissing, pictures of them living in, like, marital bliss. And then the pictures of the daughter popped up. And as soon as the pictures of the daughter popped up, like, Lois internally freaked out. And, like, when she freaked out, it was weird at first because I just thought it was, like, the shock of finding out that her doppelganger had a daughter on another planet. And then, like, after that, she just, like, got all emotional, and then she left. She told Johnathan, listen, she's like, we'll do the RV thing later. She's like, I just need a moment to, like, to clear my head. So Johnathan walked away. But in Jonathan's attempt to try to help and to try to want to, be productive as far as, like, being a member of the family is concerned, he goes back to the RV behind his mother's back, and then he starts going through more information, more files, more photos. He even said, because when he found out that, because the daughter's name was Natalie, when he found out that, Natalie was, like, I guess, like, his doppel sister, we'll call it, like, his doppel sister, he even said, he was just like, he's like, I wish I would have got to meet you because you seem really cool. And Lois knew that the girl's name was Natalie. And apparently there's a bigger story there for Lois, because we find out, because Lois ended up going to counseling. She ended up going to counseling. But before she went to counseling, as Johnathan was going through the photos, looking at the pictures of Natalie and looking at pictures of John and, like, his doppelganger mom together, he came across the video footage of Superman killing Lois on their Earth. So there was like shock for watching his dad kill his mom, so to speak. And then after that, the AI was just like, you are not authorized to be in this, to be in this RV. And then, then the whole thing closed up. And then she was just like, oh, she's like, you will be terminated within 20 seconds. And then, he started, Johnathan was trapped and he started screaming for help. And then, Lois tried to help and she couldn't do anything. And then Lois hit the panic button. Superman showed up at like the last second. He protected Johnathan from like the bullets. And then like, the guns went firing, he shielded his son from it. And then after that, he blew up the gun. He blew up the defense mechanism in the RV. Then they brought Johnathan into the house, and it was funny because like after Superman brought Johnathan out of the RV, Lois immediately gave him a hug, and then we cut to a next scene where she's cursing him out, and she got really angry, and it was one of those things where it was like Lois gave that boy a black mama, like she did everything but take off her belt and beat his ass. Like she let him have it. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like I felt that. You know what I'm saying? Like that brought me back to my childhood. And then she's like, "You'll get out of my face," and I was like, "Well, damn." Then he got emotional. And he left. And then Clark says to her, like, "Yo, you good?" And then she was just like, "I'm fine, Clark." And then he's like, "You know what? I'm just gonna take that as a no," because he's like, "You kind of tripping right now." And then she's just like, "Oh, he almost got himself killed." And he was just like, "Yeah, but you're mad at something else." And he was like, "Don't take that out on me. Don't take that out on him. Maybe you should go speak to a counselor about it." So she goes and she talks to a counselor. And while she's in counseling, she ended up making, we ended up making like the big reveal. After Lois gave birth to the twins, 18 months later, she got pregnant again. And she got pregnant with a girl. Like her and Clark were supposed to have a girl. And she was going to name the little girl Natalie because her grandmother's name was Natalie. She was going to name the child after her grandmother. And Lois was always like emotionally destroyed because she had a miscarriage and she lost the baby. So she never actually had a chance, to meet her daughter. She never had a chance to, like have that connection, because I'm pretty sure, like, obviously, like, Lois loves her sons 100%, no questions asked. But you can tell that there's a part of her that wanted to have a daughter. And when she finds out that she had a daughter on a different Earth that was named Natalie, her heart broke. And then, like and then because Johnathan got trapped in the RV, she almost lost her. She was like 2 seconds away from losing her son had Superman not swooped in for the save. So she was just like, like I already lost one child and then I was about to lose another. And then she was just like, she was an emotional wreck. Like she was very destroyed about it. And, like the counselor tried to give her some advice. And then Lois was just like, like, that's why I try to keep busy. And that's why, like, I put everything I have into my work, so this way I don't have to think about, I don't have to think about like the hurt and the pain, but the counselor told her, she was just like, yeah, but you're avoiding the grieving process. And you have to go through the grieving process if you want to eventually become, become better for that, and you have to accept the thing, because it's like, she said that the miscarriage wasn't your fault. It was just an unfortunate incident that just happens to people, and you have to accept the fact that there was nothing you can do about it and not grieve over the fact thinking that you had something to do with it. So back at the DOD now, the general, he ends up telling this one dude, he was just like, listen, if I can't crack John Irons, he said, I'm going to need you to torture him to get the information. Superman was just like, that's not what we do. And he was just like, well, that's not what you do. He's like, we're the government. That's what we do. So, but he at the end, like, he decided not to do it. He told one person, one military guy, he said, take John Irons and put him back in his cell. So when the guy's taking Irons back to his cell, the big dude who was going to torture him rolls up on him. And then he's just like, he tells the other guy, he's like, yo, just give him to me for a second, like, let me torture him. And then he was just like, no, that's not what the general told me to do. And then the guy was like, oh, you're just like a kiss ass, like you're just a stickler for the rules. And then the guy picked him up and basically like killed him. And he was just like, no, I have super strength. And apparently this one particular guy from the military happened to be one of the recipients of Morgan Edge's, ex-kryptonite infused power. And I don't know where he was taking John Irons. Like, I don't know what the plan was, but, he was going to take him somewhere. Actually, he took him, he said that he, because John asked him, he was like, wait, so you have superpowers? And he was just like, yep. He said, I'm just as strong as Superman. And he said, I can take Superman and I can kill Superman. And then he was just like, all right, well, he was just like, well, bet. He's like, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. So John Irons hit the panic button, and then when the panic button went off, he was just like, yo, I can't wait to see the two of you kill each other. So then when Superman got the alert and the general got the alert, Superman was just like, oh, John Irons is downstairs, and one of our military guys is downstairs. And then the general said, well, you can't go downstairs because downstairs is where we keep all of our kryptonite weapons. And Superman looked at him like, hold up. But he was just like, listen, he said, if people are in danger, I got to go down there and do what I got to do. So he flew down there despite the kryptonite situation. He ended up, he bumped into the Soldier. The Soldier had powers. He tried to fight Superman. Him and Superman got into it. And then the guy cheated his ass off because a la Batman versus Superman, he used the kryptonite smoke pellets to try to like weaken Superman on the inside. But Superman was able to to still fight through it despite everything. The guy had a mask on to protect him from the kryptonite, but Superman got the mask off. And then, he saved John Irons, from the guy and told John, he was like, yo, get out of the room, go save yourself. So then, like I said, so Superman was fighting the dude, but then during the fight, Superman got put down. And just before the Soldier was getting ready to kill Superman, John showed up. He took like a kryptonite spear and shoved it into the Soldier's back, and he killed the Soldier. Now John's looking at Superman like Superman's laying flat on his back, and he's just like, he was like, you rescued me, you saved my life, you seem like you're a good guy, but based on what happened to my Earth, I ain't taking that chance. And right before he puts the spear into Superman's chest, then Lois shows up, and then she talks him down, and she's just like, this is a good man, and if you kill a good man, what does that make you? And then she was like, I know about Natalie, and blah blah blah. And then he felt bad, and then he decided not to kill Superman, and then the DOD took him away. So this was incredibly awkward, like the conversation between the two of them was incredibly awkward because Lois is emotionally upset over a child that's not hers, because there's a similarity to her losing her child. And then John's looking at the woman that used to be his wife, is the mother of his child, but it's not, so it was very uncomfortable. But the most uncomfortable thing about it was, in the very next scene, John Irons was in the Kent's front yard sitting in the RV like nothing ever happened. And then even Johnathan said he was just like, what, so he's just like a house guest now? Like he just tried to kill our dad. He's like, now we're just going to invite him in for like family dinner, and then like Lois was just like, hey, let me talk to you for a second. And then, Lois told Johnathan about losing the baby. And then she, she apologized because she was just like, I was upset because I thought I was going to lose you too, and I couldn't lose you. And then, then he apologized, and the two of them like cried together and they hugged together. Lois goes out to talk to John Irons. Superman shows up, and then he's just like, listen, I understand what happened on your Earth, and I'm sorry, but that's not going to happen here. He said that in order to make sure that it doesn't happen, help us. He said, because you have the knowledge. You know how things are going to unfold or how things should unfold. Help us stop what happened on your Earth from happening here. And then, John was just like, well, you do have a point, but just because I spared your life doesn't mean I'm ready to team up with you just yet. So he's just, I just need some time. So he's just like, all right. He said, like, when you're ready and you're ready to talk, he said, talk to Miss Lane and then you'll know where I'll be. And then he took off up and away and he flew off. And then, John and Lois talked to each other. And then she was just like, where are you going to go? And then he's just like, I don't know. I'm just going to go drive and try to clear my head. And then he said that there's so much I want to say to you, but you're not the person I want to say it to. You just look like the person. And then, she didn't really say much to him either. It was just like, and it was funny because I thought she was going to ask him to tell her about Natalie. And she didn't go there. Instead, she just, she just said goodbye. He said Godspeed. He got in his RV, and then Lois walked away. And then when John got back in the RV, the AI was like, welcome back, Captain Luthor. And he was just like, update my profile, be it. He's just like, instead of Captain Luthor, he said, just call me John Henry Irons. And then she was like, certainly, John, where are we going to go? And then he was just like, I don't know. And he said, as a matter of fact, I'm going to need you to turn, he said, why don't you just turn off for a second? I'm just going to drive myself and just see where the day takes me. And this is going to be interesting because it's still never said about what actually happened to Natalie, whether or not Natalie ended up on this Earth or not. And if she didn't end up on this Earth, and if Natalie did die, did John Henry Irons from this Earth have a daughter as well? So there could be a possibility that the Natalie from Earth Prime still exists, but she lost her father, and then now we got John Henry Irons from a different Earth who lost his daughter. Maybe now that he's going to drive around the country to clear his head, maybe he finds her. Maybe he finds this Earth's version of his daughter, and then he ends up taking care of her, and the two of them team up. That would be very hard. Like, it's almost like I'd almost prefer his actual daughter somehow ended up on this Earth, but if it ends up being his daughter from, his doppelganger daughter from Earth Prime, and he ends up becoming a father to her, I'll accept that as well. Like either way will be good. But this was a very emotional episode. This is a very emotional episode because I mean we've all been in situations where we've had someone and lost someone, and losing somebody that you deeply care about. It's almost like losing your right arm. It's like having your heart torn out. So there was a lot of moments like Lois definitely is the MVP of this episode, because there were a lot of moments where like I felt I felt her pain. I felt where she was coming from. So now it's just weird because now like John is removed from the picture, so to speak, and we're gonna focus more on the Morgan Edge situation. There was a brief moment where Lana Lane's husband found out that Morgan Edge actually wanted him for the program, but like Lana said no. So now he's like looking at his wife sideways, and then maybe he's gonna try to like talk to Morgan Edge and get. So he's gonna get himself in the program behind his wife's back. So we already know that's coming. And they said, and that's it. And then Johnathan himself, like he's just trying to come to terms with just like being the normal guy. But I still say the boy gonna have powers. And if it turns out that he doesn't end up developing powers naturally, once we find out that X Kryptonite gives people powers, watch Johnathan take X Kryptonite so he can be super just like his son and his dad. So that was it. Like thank you for tuning in. Let me know in the comment section. Let me know what you think about like this show's really good. Like let me know what you think about Superman and Lois. Let me know what you think about the whole thing with Lois and the baby. What do you think happened to Natalie? Do we have a Natalie on Earth Prime? Is the Natalie on the original Earth, on their Earth? Did she die in Crisis? Did she end up on this Earth like Alice, like Alice's doppelganger and like other people? Share your thoughts below and we'll continue to talk about it. Check out the all-female version of the Tacos and Geek podcast hosted by Gotham Geek Girl Nadia. Link will be in the description. Check me out on Twitter. Check me out on Instagram as always, and on YouTube, where we share our questions, comments, and concerns about all the superhero goodness. Thanks for tuning in, guys. So up, and away for this episode, and until episode 9, take care. For the Man of Steel, I'm out this bitch.